Hey guys, my name is Noel Elie, and I am an actress and filmmaker and the CEO of a production and PR company called Noel Elie Productions. And today on Ever Forward, we talked about all things fibroid tumors, mold toxicity, mycotoxins, Lyme disease, and plant medicine.
3, 2, 1.
On brand. We're good?
Yeah.
Lights, camera, action. You know what to do.
I know what to do.
I got to say, this has been a cool thing interviewing, I guess, more industry people, entertainment industry is they're so cool, calm, and collected when we sit down.
You mean they don't change?
I'm like, wow, you've done like a lot of podcasts. Because a lot of interviews that I've had, people are just kind of like, what do I
Stiffen
do?
up.
Like, they get, everybody's just like sinking in.
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, Noel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. I guess, unfortunately for you, for a lot of things recently in your life, it's very fortunate for me in the questions and the content here, because I think, like I was telling you when we met up last week, a lot of things that it sounds like you've been going through, I've been relearning about in terms of our environmental health and how, quite literally, where we live, the environment that we work in, live in, all the things we're around, we're breathing in, can passively be having a negative impact on our lives that quickly become pretty acute. So can you kind of walk us through what you're going through right now?
Oh man, where to begin? So I moved to LA 2 years ago, and I noticed that my health started to decline. And I've always been relatively healthy, very, very active, a lot going on. And I started getting exhausted all the time. And I started getting headaches. And I noticed this lump in my stomach. I had noticed it in 2018. It was very small. It was like the size of a $50. And when I moved into this home, it got larger and larger. So I was like, what is happening? So I tried to WebMD it. And that was a mistake. Yep. I went down a rabbit hole, and it was either ovarian cancer or fibroid tumors. And I had never heard of fibroid tumors. And they're in your uterus, and doctors don't really know why women get them. So I went to an OBGYN, and sure enough, she said, you have 2 fibroid tumors. So she told me to cut them out, basically, have surgery, get them removed. And I didn't really want to do that because I researched it and found that a lot of women have them grow back even after the surgery, and the surgery is invasive, you know?
Yeah.
So I continued to research and be my own advocate and see more doctors trying to get to the root of the issue. And I found out that I had Lyme disease and co-infections and mold toxicity. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I got bit by a tick when I was 6. But I've never had any sort of symptom or something like that. So I continued to research. And then I was researching the correlation between Lyme disease and fibroid tumors. And I found there's a lot of women that end up having them both. And still, doctors don't know why. So then I started doing plant medicine. And I got very clear on my next steps. I kept asking for guidance on to ordain my path. So what do I do? Who do I go to? And I heard, get your home tested for mold. Okay. You can't see any mold. It's newly renovated. You can't smell anything, but okay. So I got it tested, and sure enough, we had mold in our home. So as a result, we have had to get rid of every single thing that we owned.
Everything
our
you've been
furniture,
telling me.
our clothes, toiletries, shoes, sentimental stuff that like you can't get back. I mean, all of it.
I didn't even think about that.
Yep. And so it has been really tough. And so we moved, before we found our new home, we looked at probably 25, 30 places. And the places we liked, we had to get tested to see if they had mold. So the average person can deal with a little bit of mold and be okay. But if you have any sort of underlying illnesses, it can activate Lyme disease, which I've experienced. it can cause the fibroid tumors to grow massively and can just send people down a spiral of health issues that they didn't even realize. And you start to feel a little crazy, like you
I
feel
can
nuts.
imagine.
Especially because in the traditional medical community, a lot of doctors don't go to mold. They'll go to um, fibromyalgia, arthritis, like all of these other conditions, except for possible mold
Yeah, kind of
toxicity.
more bodily
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So I've gotten to the root of the issue. I know what's going on. And so now I've removed myself from the home with mold, but now it's about detoxing the mold. And so it's like sweating in the infrared sauna every day and doing cryotherapy and vitamin IV therapy. And it's been a doozy.
I can only imagine how busier you are now
Right?
dealing with all this,
Right.
healing through it all.
Mhm.
But it's things that you are now choosing to put onto your calendar and
Yeah.
into your life so that you can get your life back in
Yeah.
a way. Well, I want to go back to that moment when you're in the doctor's office and kind of these things were presenting themselves. I mean, you kind of quickly said that I went to plant medicine
Yeah.
for this.
Glazed over. No big deal.
She's like, no, thank you. I'll be right back. I'm going to go to a ceremony.
Right.
How and why did that happen? Was this something that you were curious about? Had you experienced it before? How did you kind of lean into, I'm going to go this route with my healing, or at least test it out versus traditional medicine?
That's a great question. So my mom passed away in 2016 from stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And in 2011, she was diagnosed. And she went the integrative route. She did not do plant medicine, although she did do cannabis oil. So I guess that's plant medicine.
Sure.
But that's when I started discovering that there are other forms of healing outside of going to a traditional doctor and getting traditional, allopathic treatment or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I think that our bodies talk to us if we listen. And so I just started trying to go in and ask my body what she was trying to tell me.
Wow.
And I was having a hard time hearing because the way I do that is like breath work or meditation or things that are really good for my body. But I was so angry. I was feeling like my body betrayed me.
Oh, sure. A level of distrust.
Yeah. That I thought like, I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do breath work.
I don't want to give you what you want. You haven't given me what I
screw you.
want.
Yeah. So nothing was working essentially. And so I don't want to say it was out of desperation, but a friend of mine had talked to me about ayahuasca and I had heard about it 10 years ago, but I'll say this about it. If you don't feel called to it, maybe don't do it because it will change your life. And so I found out about it 10 years ago. It wasn't the right time. And it got brought up to me again. And just instantly my body lit up and I like sat up and I was excited.
So
and
physically, your body responded to this idea. Wow.
Yes. Wow. And so that to me was a yes. And so I was connected with a wonderful couple that did microdosing of psilocybin and ayahuasca. It's like part of the vine. And so that was sort of my first introduction into plant medicine. And it was beautiful and it was hard and it was all the things, but it has had such a profound impact on my healing.
Wow. So I just want to kind of pause right there and take the listener back to how your body responded when you were talking about finally listening to it and looking inward, so to speak. I think that's a big area where we overlook and or we don't even think about first when it comes to healing. And that could be you sprained your ankle, you've got an acute injury, you've got a recurring injury, some kind of inflammation. These are all things that the body presents so that it can tell us exactly what it needs and where, quite specifically.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain more so that someone can really relate to, okay, yeah, but why? Like, okay, what was that inner monologue? Like, what was a first step, the next step? Like, how did you know beyond just your body kind of perking up that you were on the right path to healing?
So for me, it's about a feeling. So we talked a little bit about this, and I don't know enough about it to give like the full description, but human design.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know your experience and you
Yep.
can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm a manifesting generator, and I have sacral authority, which means it's more or less a hell yes or hell no.
Like a
And
deep-rooted
a
intuition.
deep-rooted
Yeah.
intuition. And it's very quick. It's very like yes or no. And for me, how that communicates to me, or how I operate within that, is how do I respond? Do I get lit up by something, or is my body language to sit back and cross my arms and like cross things, because and kind of like scoot back? If I do that, generally something is not right.
Which I think is a huge point in and of itself. Body language we often think of as what we're telling other people.
Right.
But body language, what are we telling our own selves?
Ooh,
You
that's
know?
good.
What is body language
Yeah.
telling us?
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I became aware of that a few years ago, but I didn't always pay attention. And so I started paying attention to that. And anytime I would meet with a doctor, and I met with many wonderful doctors, anytime they started talking about like cutting me open, my body was like, nope. And it may be something that I do in the future. It's not something that is no forever, but right now that felt like a Band-Aid. And so I would just say, start paying attention to the feeling inside. Is there a red flag? And for me, a lot of times the red flag has no tangible reason. So one of the things I was supposed to do was go to the East Coast to get treatment. And I was about to drop like 25 grand to heal myself of the Lyme disease and possibly shrink the tumors. And the night before, I was supposed to fly out, and something like a little voice, my own voice, maybe a spoken feeling, said, don't go. You're not supposed to go. And it wasn't out of fear, like something bad was going to happen. It was just a no. So I told my husband.
Wow.
And he said, are you crazy? Don't you want to heal? Like,
these are non-refundable tickets.
Yeah. Like, we booked the hotel. What are you doing? And I just said, I can't go. And I had no idea why. Well, months later, I found out that our home had mold. And had I gone to the East Coast, I would have probably healed in that moment or for that month, and then come back to our home, and it would have activated the Lyme all over again.
Come back to the same quite literal toxic environment.
Yep. Yep. And so it's just for anybody out there that has that little voice that says yes or no, maybe listen. And you're not going to always have the answers as to why. Maybe it'll come down the road. Maybe it won't come at all. But anytime I have listened to that voice, it has served me exponentially.
That's such a unique perspective. As you're describing that, I think back to, I was sharing with you a little bit of my healing journey years ago in the military. And as you're just describing that intuition, I can say that I didn't have any of that. And it's not because I don't think that I wasn't aware of my body. I'm definitely way more aware now, and it's been like 12 years. But there was so much trust that I had in the medical system. So much trust that I had in authority. Like I said, I was still active duty at the time, and this is what my leadership was telling me. This is what my doctors were telling me. This is what this orthopedic specialist that flew halfway across the country came to tell me. And it was just, oh, well, if they are the experts in their field and they are saying that I have this problem and they can give me this solution, who am I to get in their way? But it's our body.
Right.
It's our body.
It's our body. And it's also like, I so hear you, and I resonate with that so much. And at the same time, I look at it as not being defiant, although generally if someone tells me what to do, I'm like, no, I want to do the opposite. But I look at it as being curious. So that's okay. You told me to do something, but why? Like, you told me to cut open my stomach and take out these tumors. I got that. But can you tell me they're not going to come back? And can you tell me even why they came?
Yeah.
No? Well, then maybe I want to try a different route.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think it's about having a childlike curiosity. Approaching it that way, right? Because then it feels a little bit less defiant. And, you know, another thing I realized or learned was doctors gave my mom 3 months to live.
Oh, yeah. This story is incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
So when my mom got cancer, the doctor said, you'll be lucky if you make it through the holidays. And that was 3 months. And she thrived for 6 years. And so that was my first inkling into, oh, doctors or the experts aren't always factual. They're not always Bible. You know, that doesn't make it so. It's their opinion. They're not God. And We have been given free will, and I think we can fight like hell to do what's right for our body. And if you
Mhm.
don't know, try talking to it. And it sounds crazy and woo-woo and silly, but um, I have discovered many wonderful
Yeah.
answers as a result,
It's so real. It's so
right?
real. And I think back to like so many times when even before I had any kind of acute experience, not like, an injury aside, how many times I'm sure you growing up, have we gone to the doctor and it's just, you're this age, you're this male, female, you're this in this part of the world, you're this, you're immediately just put into a bucket.
Right.
And that bucket is what they treat, not the
Right.
human being.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not to bash, excuse me, all the doctors and stuff
No,
out
of
there, but it's
course.
just, I think a very broken system and very
Yeah.
broken approach to the human being. We are
Yeah.
multifaceted. I am not you, you are not me. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, why don't you also have that same level of curiosity that I can
Right.
have about the body?
Right, exactly. And that was another thing I learned when my mom got treatment. She got something called IPT therapy,
Mm.
and it's targeted chemo. And insurance did not cover it.
Oof.
And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she I went to the insurance company and was like, I don't understand why you're not covering this. It's still, and they said, well, it's not conventional. Like it's not. And I said, but it's still chemo. It's just
Hmm.
an eighth of the dose. So it's not like killing every good thing in her body. And they said, well, she's 55 years old and she's a white female and they basically did exactly what you're saying. They put her into this bracket and they said, based on the type of cancer she has, this is what we'll cover. And it just blew my mind because had she gone the route that they would have covered, it would have killed her instantly. We
Wow.
found out later down the road that like she wasn't a candidate for that. And so it's
Wow.
just again these reminders that I've been given of we have divine sovereignty over our body.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
claim it.
I want to really dive into your experience, what you want to share with plant medicine and that new approach to your healing journey. But again, this is very timely for me and kind of my personal studying of our environment and health and wellness. I was telling you when we met the other day that I recently wrapped up this book called Countdown,
Mhm.
and it's all about how over the last several years and decades, fertility, particularly male fertility, has been on a rapid decline.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of contributing factors to that in terms of our diet, activity levels, sleep, all of the stuff we talk about all the time here. So get your diet in check, sleep well, and move.
Yeah.
But it's the other things that we may not think of. It's what's in the paint, what's in the walls, what's in the
Right.
flooring, what's in the carpet, and all this stuff. So can you kind of take us back to what did you do when you went home? How did you test? What were some of the things you found? And what are some
Sure.
things that maybe someone could take home and apply right now?
Absolutely. So I ordered what's called an ERMI test. It's ERMI, and uh, they basically send you it's like a Swiffer, and you take dust from different parts of your home, and then you send it to them, and then they test it against all these different Stachybotrys and Aspergillus and all of these different molds. And they tell you the levels of mold that are in your home. You can also get something called an air test,
Hmm.
where a mold expert will come over to your home and they will use a little machine to test the humidity levels. And then, depending on where it's the most humid in your home, they will do an air test
Okay.
and they'll test the levels outside as well. And we did two air tests and then the ERMI test as well. And then we also did two different tests for mycotoxins. So mycotoxins are from mold spores. And
So it's not enough that we have to
test,
test for toxins.
yeah,
We need to test for microtoxins.
yep, yep.
Wow.
And it's it's to see if it's in your body. So like, when you think about it, our skin is our largest organ, and we're breathing in, and what are we putting on our skin? And it's so funny. I said to my husband the other day, I can't believe I'm like the crazy mold person now. No, truly, my
I've
shaman.
seen this in TLC years ago. Yeah.
Truly, like my shaman, when I met him, he went through a similar experience. And by the way, I say shaman, but he's like this like white guy with blue eyes, like looks like a surfer from California.
So we're breaking the
But
shaman
yeah,
stigma
we're
stereotype.
breaking
All right. Good. Yeah.
but he told me he went through something very similar. He had to get rid of all of his things. And I
Wow.
I told him, I was like, that sucks for you. Like truly, I feel bad. And also like thank God I'll never be that person. Surprise, So it's important to test your environment, but then it's also important to test your body and to
Okay.
see what's going on. And so I found out that I have levels of Stachybotrys, which is black mold, which is like the worst in my body, which is crazy.
Just in there thriving,
Yep.
doing its black death stuff.
Yep.
Gosh.
I'm losing hair, like all of these.
Yeah. What were some like the
symptoms.
Yeah.
Oh man. So heart issues. My husband just today, actually right before I came here, he got back from the doctor and he said he has heart arrhythmia and he has to wear a monitor for the next month. And I'm like, what? And they said it could be because of the mold. So that's one of the symptoms, hair loss. Both my husband and my husband started to lose hair first. And I just thought, oh, you're pushing 40, like maybe it's just that age. And then I started to lose hair and I'm like, well, wait, I'm not that old. This isn't normal. And then we found out it's one of the symptoms. Chronic fatigue, sleeplessness, like tired but wired, crazy anxiety and depression.
Really?
I've never been an anxious person.
So it was hitting on this like emotional level as well. Wow.
Oh my God. And what it feels like is like someone is pressing on your chest.
Wow.
Which is like not a fun feeling to have. And I would say for us, those were the main big ones. So
It kind of sounds like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Any kind of discomfort, pain.
Yeah.
I'm just, as you were talking, I'm thinking of like, I've heard this symptom on like every commercial for every disease, for everything ever.
Yep. And that's the that's the thing. Like they, and the issue with me is because I have Lyme disease. Lyme is known as the great mimicker. So it will literally mimic whatever symptoms you have going on as well. So it's like a double whammy for me.
Lucky for you. Yeah.
I'm
right.
so
Wow.
lucky. Yeah.
Jeez. So, well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
So then you were running through all these tests for toxins, microtoxins at home. And then ultimately you all came to the conclusion that this is kind of beyond treatment, beyond a Band-Aid. We have to completely abandon ship.
Yeah.
How did you know it was at that level? How did you know through these testings that your home was no longer safe to live in and you couldn't just clean it or have a treatment done?
Because proper remediation is not an easy thing to do. So our home was built in the 70s and it's unless they tore down half of it, it just, I mean, for the amount of time it would take and the money,
Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted a new place. The home that we lived in was something I picked out on my own. Dan was still in New York. So like we wanted something that we could find together. And so we just realized it would be easier. And also the fact that we had to get rid of all of our belongings. So like, it just didn't make sense to stay there.
Take us there, please. So gather yourself, collect your emotions, because this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to healing journey, I mean, you are the shining example now of a holistic healing journey in terms of what you're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and then seeking out healing through all of those different modalities. But it wasn't just your body. It wasn't just your relationship. It was your home. Talk about like learning lessons and letting go, talk about attachment, talk about starting over in mind, body, spirit, and environment.
Yeah. I mean, I am someone who liked her thing. I had stuff that I loved, and especially my clothes. And I kind of had to go through it in stages. I went through it and probably over the course of a month. So I would like do a sweep of my closet and then in my dresser and my stuff. And then I would like a few days later do it again. And then a few days later do it again. And I mean, I truly did have too many things. Like I'll own that. But part of the reason I had a lot of clothes, for example, was when my mom passed away in 2016. She was like the cutest little button. She had the best style. She was like a little free people hippie. Like she just, so I had pieces of her, from her so the clothes was hard, but not as hard as like pieces of furniture and not as hard as sentimental things from my mom that you don't get back. So she had given me It's by a company called Richway. It's an amethyst crystal biomat,
Okay.
and it's a healing mat that you plug in, and there's different frequencies. And
I think I've seen Luke's story use that one. That sounds very familiar. It's
probably,
like a rollout mat kind
yep,
of thing. Yeah, yeah,
yep,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I loved it, and it was uh, a part of her healing journey as well. Like when she got cancer, we got her this mat, and she would lay on it, and so that was probably that, and funny enough, books and
Mm,
books that like my mom had written to me in. Um, it's hard,
mhm.
um, but it's just stuff. And one of the things that kept coming to me is, do you want things or do you want your health? And
What does your mom also want for you?
And what does my mom want from me?
Yeah.
And she was someone that, like, that woman could purge. Like, she had no problem, no fucks given. Like, she just got rid of stuff. And so I kept like trying to pull
Mm,
from that. And I could just feel her being like, Noel, girl, get healthy.
yeah.
You don't need any of this stuff. And I remember when I was probably 14, I was watching an episode of Oprah,
Mm.
and she had on a director. I can't remember his name, but he had millions of dollars in this big mansion in the hills. And he decided to get rid of everything and live in like one of those tiny homes in Hawaii on the
Go full
beach,
blown minimalist.
full blown
Wow, wow.
minimalist. And I remember thinking, that's amazing. I would never be able to do that. But like something about that just stuck with me. And so when all of this was happening, I just tried to look at it like a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had to allow myself to grieve the things and not make myself wrong for like, being materialistic or whatever. I just had to allow myself at times to break down.
Yeah.
And I had to ask my husband to be very patient with me. And he
Sounds
was.
like a good husband.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a big process, and it's something obviously I'll never forget. And it also taught me the importance of like, use the nice things, wear the nice outfits. I saved so many pieces that I never wore that still
Mm,
had like, that's
that's me. Yeah.
ridiculous, right? I never, and especially in the pandemic too, right? Like I lived in sweats for a year
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So,
And how okay was that?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. And a lot of times I probably wore like the same item over and over.
Mm,
So it taught me to appreciate the small things, to wear the things, to use the things. And now I'm just being very intentional about every single piece we bring into our home.
mm.
And that actually feels really good. And there was, I think it was the day before I met you last week. I had no clothes, literally. I
Oh,
I had no clothes.
wow.
And so I ran into Bloomingdale's, grabbed an outfit, didn't even try it on, and then I came to meet you the next day. And it was so funny because I realized I had fallen into an old pattern
Mm,
of just grabbing shit and going. And how I don't want to live my life like that anymore. Instead, I
interesting.
want to have intention in everything. And this is like a new phase for me.
That's so interesting. The level of intention you now have or
Mhm.
awareness on
Mhm.
quite literally everything that you not only put into your body, but onto your body
Yep.
and allow your body to be around in a home.
Mhm.
That's a level of intention and awareness that, I mean, why would most of us have that if we
Right.
haven't had to fight for it
Right.
before?
Right.
What's it been like for your husband? Because I think this is a unique part of about a healing journey.
Mhm.
Is a lot of times we find things, we go through an experience, a health scare, a trauma, whatever, and it brings action into our life. It brings awareness into our life. But sometimes that doesn't carry over to the people in our life.
Right.
What has that been like for him?
Oh, that's a great question. He honestly has been incredible. The depression for him. He's someone that naturally has struggled with depression in the
Mm,
past. So like the depression was amplified for him for sure. And there were definitely nights where he was, drinking his sorrows. And we both were like just so depressed,
Just trying to cope.
just trying to cope.
Yeah.
And but he's been, not only has he been a rock for me, but he also has joined this journey with me and recognizing when his body is now reacting to things.
Mm,
I shared with you earlier. So I got rid of all of our things, but I kept a few bags of clothes.
mm.
I was like, I can wash it. It's fine. I bought these like mold remover.
I'll keep it in a hazmat
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's fine. I'll wash it. I'll soak it in the sun or whatever. And I heard very clearly I needed to let them go.
Mm.
And so I told my husband, and we were going through the things, getting rid of them quite literally. And his asthma started going crazy, and I started getting heart palpitations, and my throat started to hurt. And we recognized how quickly both of our bodies were literally reacting to the mold in the clothes. And by the way,
Wow.
you couldn't see mold anywhere. It was just the mycotoxins. And so I said to him, I was like, maybe if we can shift this idea we have around like, oh my God, our bodies are so sensitive, this sucks, into, oh my God, we have a superpower.
Yeah. It's that mindset shift.
Right?
You have to have it. Yeah.
You have to have it. So
you're going to survive it the way that you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been great. But it's, like for me as well, it's just been a struggle.
Let's go back to this new modality you have in your life, the one that it sounds like kind of put you on the path to finding these answers and healing in many ways, plant medicine. What does that mean? What was your experience? Why did you do it? Why do you keep going back to it? What can you share about that?
So my first experience was part psilocybin, which is mushroom tea, and part ayahuasca. And so with that, there's no dark night of the soul. There's no purging. With traditional ayahuasca, you drink a cup and can be a lot of purging.
That's what I know of it. Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't experienced it, but that's the only thing I've heard of.
Yep. It can be very, very dark. And I've done ayahuasca, traditional ayahuasca twice now. My husband's done it once. And I've done the microdosing of the ayahuasca and psilocybin together a handful of times. And it has been one of the best things that has ever happened to me. It's like you're living life with blinders on, and all of a sudden they're opened up, and you then have a choice. Do you want to then close them and go through life, or do you want to live with open blinders now?
You staying in the matrix, or are we pulling you out?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, before I had experienced it, I judged it for sure. I was like, oh, I mean, that sounds cool, but like, I don't want to be a druggie. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that. The level of, and the depth of love and peace and bliss and sadness and beauty I have experienced in the medicine has just been truly incredible. And the thing I'll say, if you're thinking about taking ayahuasca and it's your first time, you can ask her to be gentle. So they call ayahuasca Mother Ayahuasca.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, my first time doing ayahuasca, I said, Mama Aya, please be so gentle and
I'm new.
So just be sweet. And it was such a beautiful experience. It was so gentle. It was so loving and light. And it taught me that healing does not have to be painful.
Okay.
Which was big for me because
that's a big statement.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the second night I got gutsy and I said, okay, I experienced that first night. Great. Okay, Mama Aya, whatever lesson in whatever form you want to give me, I'll receive. And the second night I felt like I was dying.
Be careful what you ask for, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Intention is everything. And I I had no idea. And the gift I got from that moment was I physically truly felt like I was dying. I was in excruciating pain. And what I realized was I was in the pain, and then all of a sudden I would be taken to just utter peace, and a peace that passes all understanding and is so beautiful and like nothing I'd ever experienced. And, I just kept hearing, without suffering, there can be no compassion. And the bigger gift I got from that moment was I was taken back to when my mom passed, and when she was on her deathbed, I was with her, and my whole family was with her. And I had said to her, like, Mama, don't you want to keep fighting? Like, don't you want to stay with us? And she said, you have no idea how much pain I'm in. And what I realized is it's been almost 5 years. I was still holding on to a little bit of anger and resentment for her passing because I felt like, but you left me, you were my best friend. And, it was really hard. And in the medicine, I realized, oh my God, if that was even an ounce of pain she was experiencing, and then she got to go to that peace,
Yeah.
1,000 times over, go to that peace,
Yeah.
and it's okay. And I forgive you. And so it was just, there's so many lessons like that I've received that have been remarkable.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's such a true testament to the level of ego that we have that we don't even realize.
Right.
When I go back to I guess, the last couple of years, like a whole new wave of health, of wellness, of healing, of the medicine, of everything. And through levels of awareness, through breath work, through journaling, through just thinking, through psilocybin, through different things, it has shown up in that way. And it just slaps you in the face. Like, how can you not see how much of me, I has been in my own way of healing?
Right.
Because we share this in common. I shared this with you, the loss of a parent. And I was so young, and all you want for your parent in general, but especially at 18, 19 years old, like, no, not yet. But then you get mad, like you're giving up. I want you to fight. We're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. But I can only imagine the level of pain that he was in and your mom was in.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, we want them to stick it out for us,
Totally.
not for them.
No, I mean, I literally said to her, but how do I go on without you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how, and it's like you become, like you said, you become so aware of your own ego. And the beauty of the medicine is that it taught me to be a silent witness, like a silent passenger, and to just witness my ego, not from a place of judgment, but just simply become aware, and it's been such a gift, because now in life and every day, because we're human, our ego is going to come in. I can witness it and choose to change, or I can witness it and choose to just go in a different direction and not succumb to my ego.
How has your mindset shifted now around the labeling of all of this? You said earlier, oh no, I'm not a druggie.
Yeah.
And I think, personally speaking as well, I think that is one of the biggest barriers we have to a lot of potential healing and remedies, whether that's, you pick whatever that remedy is. It doesn't have to be ayahuasca.
Right.
It could be a lot of different things, but there's a mindset, there's a belief system around that. And it's one that we have to first break through. And in my personal experience, I had to use a psychedelic to break through that in order to fully realize how I was in my own way. So I'm curious, what is your kind of view of it now?
So I recognized, because I had a history of, so many of my clients for so many years were these prolific speakers and thought leaders and meditation leaders and all of these things. I had a background in that, but none of that was working. And the reason it wasn't working was because I wasn't able to fully embody.
Okay.
And through the medicine, I've been able to embody whatever the emotion is or whatever the feeling is. And it's not, I no longer say, well, they're druggies or I'm a druggie or whatever. It's literally plant medicine. It's natural, that has been put here on this earth. And, I think it's everything in moderation, right? But I mean, like I've said, I could say it a million times, the gifts I've been given from these experiences is more profound than anything I could have ever imagined, and now I've made peace with death, and I understand why some of the fibroid tumors are here, or the Lyme disease, or the mold. I have a greater understanding around life. And at the same time, I recognize the more I think I know, the less I know. Right? I mean, I am forever a student of life. And anytime I think oh, I'm woke, it's like the universe has a way of being no, you ain't.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. But speaking of professionally, I'm curious, how has this kind of influenced or changed at all what you do professionally? Because being in the entertainment industry, I mean, you're around a lot of people that talk the talk, that walk the walk, that do a lot of different things. And you're now walking the walk, talking the talk alongside with them. What has this kind of meant or felt like professionally for you?
I've realized that when I first started in December with plant medicine, I knew that I needed to take time off to heal, but I didn't want to.
Mm.
And I fought tooth and nail to not do it. And
Which in your line of work could be the end of work.
It could be the end of work, and there's that feeling of like, you're going to be forgotten, you're going to be looked over, you'll be a has-been or whatever it is. And I've realized that nothing is more important than my healing, number one. Number two, what good am I going to be on set for 14 hours a day if I'm having a hard time remembering what I did 10 minutes ago? Right? Like, truly. And there was a fear in the beginning as well of sharing, especially on social media, about what I was going through. Even though I've always been an open book, I've always, posted those stories of me snot-faced grieving,
Okay.
right? Like
Yeah.
I've always been an open book in that way. At the same time, when it came to having chronic illnesses and these diagnoses, I was afraid that casting directors and producers that follow me would be like, oh, we can't hire her, she's a sick girl. And so that there was so much ego attached to it. And I realized I no longer want to act in the form that I was acting. Meaning I would go on every audition and I would, read for everything. And I was so excited and just say yes and yes and yes and yes, even if it didn't necessarily resonate with me and who I was.
Because it meant possibly saying yes to work.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And it meant, there's connection, there's networking, and it wasn't serving me. And I quite literally got burnt out. And I was the yes girl. I would do anything, and I no longer want that.
Wow.
That's not a priority for me. And I want meaningful work. I did many roles that were like the hot girl or the seductress. And although I'm grateful, that didn't feel good. And look, I for the right role, I would say yes, 100%. But like, if it's not in alignment with who I am anymore, right now at least, I don't have to do it. And it's really empowering to be like, no, I'm good. I'd rather, go home, be with my pup and my man and go to the beach than, saying these lines that are terrible to begin with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know what you mean. I'm not an actor, but I can imagine. But it actually leads me to my question that I was thinking about just now of this is kind of what you hear about all the time of actors and actresses getting into roles that kind of pigeonhole them for their career. But more so than that, it's like, am I that person?
Right.
Like, am I the seductress? Am I the bad guy? Am I this person, that person, whoever? Because if you're saying yes so many times, and if the town, so to speak, kind of puts you in that role, you have to kind of probably believe that's who you are.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Is that true? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes a bit of a mind fuck too. I mean, literally between modeling and acting, in one day I went on 4 castings and I was told I was too tall, I was too short, I was too fat, and I was too thin. What?
Like, what the fuck is that? Like,
in one day,
Jesus,
and it's like, it's so wild too, because there were so many times I would be in the room in like a producer director session, and I would see the producer take out his phone and get on his phone in the middle of a scene. And I would leave the room thinking, well, I suck. I am the worst. And then you book the job, so it's like, there's no rhyme or reason. And I feel like we give away, as actors and entertainers, we give away our power so much. It's so empowering to say to your agent, you know what, I'm not interested in this role. And the right agent will be okay with it. You're going to get some reps that are really annoyed, but the right agent will be okay. And it's that's why so many actors nowadays are creating their own work. And so I'm looking forward to getting my energy back and having the creativity fill my cup in a way that I feel like I've been without for a little bit.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah. And it kind of sounds like you're finding that through saying no.
Yeah.
For so long, you were saying yes to a lot of things in your career, saying yes to, how you wanted to show up in the world and how you wanted to heal. but it's really like a lot of things are saying yes to you when you're saying no to other things.
Like even on the 4th of July, a friend of mine invited me to this, wonderful party. And I am like used to be such a FOMO person, and I would just continue to say yes because I didn't want to miss out. And I had to say to her, like, I love you so much. Thank you for the invite. I need to actually just like kind of go within. She was like, cool, no problem. I'll invite you the next time.
And I think that's the most surprising thing of all, when it's with people that like truly have your best interest at heart, that are friends and family. Like we have this whole narrative in our head of they're going to hate me. They're not going to invite me to things anymore. They're going to this, they're going to that. But if you're honest, why not give them the opportunity to be honest back?
Right.
You know?
And I have a friend who is the most brutally honest person I've ever met. Like just no fucks given. But I tell her all the time, it's truly so inspiring because I see her go through life, just at any moment being so honest, and it kind of gives people the ability to then rise to the occasion. And so there's parts of that I'm trying to, pull from because, it's just easier to go through life just being clear. And then the other person doesn't create a story in their head and you haven't created a story.
If you can create a world that you can live in your truth, it allows the space for truth for others to also exist. I mean, and that's what I'm after. That's, I want to keep being on the journey of having that clarity, of having that clear yes, clear no to the things that serve me, so that it can not only make the space, but also I think it's an aspect of courage that a lot of other people need to see.
Totally. And I think it's also, look, just because for me it's a clear yes or a clear no, that doesn't mean that's for everyone. Some people, like in human design, some people have emotional authority, which means they need to like ride the wave of their emotions. Some people need to talk it out. And, that means talking with someone who's not only going to listen, but help you like peel back the layers of getting to the root of the issue. And one of the things, there was a situation one time I went to my husband and I was upset. I created a story in my head about something with a friend and I was upset. And my husband just kept saying, what else? What else? And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, how'd you know to do that? And it was such a gift because then we got to like the root of something that happened to me when I was like 8 years old, like, with a friend or whatever. It was like, it felt so, small, but in reality, I had been carrying that one thing that happened, being left out into the situation in my adulthood,
I think that's so interesting you bring up, because in my growth over the last couple of years, and just the more I unravel about myself, it also allows me the opportunity to see that in other people. And it not only gives me grace for what I'm going through in my life, but also I feel like I have been able to give more grace because, and I don't say this in any kind of like holier than thou way, but it's just, you see more of people.
Yeah.
You understand more of people.
Yeah.
And what would have been a trigger for me before of like, F this guy, you're cut off, or I can't believe this person did that. It's just, wow, I can so wholeheartedly see this deep-rooted trauma in your life that you have not addressed.
Right.
There's this underlying thing that is going on in your world that I am so excited for you to find out about, because it means we can get past all this bullshit and this unnecessary just behavior that doesn't serve you and me. Yeah. And it's, can you relate? Have you also seen that in other people?
Absolutely. And I think it's even the same thing with like these diagnoses where and we talked about this with losing parents. This is a very morbid way to say it, but it's like all of a sudden you become the dead parents club, where truly I thought I had empathy and compassion for friends that had lost parents, but until I was in that situation, I had no idea.
The second you told me that at the coffee house, I immediately just like everything shifted. I was like, I know you.
Yeah, totally. And now it's the same thing with, fellow Lyme warriors and, fibroid tumor warriors. And I recognize them now and I see, I don't necessarily know that I had the experience, but I feel like maybe in an old version of myself, if someone were missing out on work because of a chronic illness, I'd be like, but you were fine yesterday. What are you talking about? Right? There'd be a little bit of judgment. And now, like, I get it. one minute you are literally fine and the next minute you're literally in bed. And so I just think that through our suffering in life, it then allows us the freedom to have so much compassion. And so whether that's for a friend who isn't addressing their trauma or their wounds, you know, I see you because I am you, because I was you,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, there's no difference. Like I said, there's no
Yeah.
better than. It's like we are equals because we
we're
have gone
one.
through the same shit
hmm
or different versions of.
Yeah.
Are you in a place of gratitude for all of this, or are you still kind of trying to get there? Or?
I am at times.
Okay.
I'm not 100% grateful that I lost everything, right?
Sure.
But I am, there are so many moments where I'm now so grateful that my body is so um, in tune with, nope, this isn't right for you. So for example, I was supposed to take, I had a doctor who wanted me to take antibiotics for 4 years. And
4 years.
4
Out of the gate.
years
They're
out of the
like,
gate.
here's your,
Yep.
wow.
Yeah, the Lyme disease, 4 years. So they gave me the prescription. I filled it up, had all my bottles. I literally went to take the pills and my arms went out. And I was like, what? And I put them down. And like anytime I would go to grab it, my arms would go back out. And I was like, what is happening? I
Wow.
felt nuts. But literally my body was like, absolutely not.
This is profound. Wow.
I later found out, months later through doing blood work, a different doctor said to me, she goes, Noel, thank God you listened to your intuition. And I said, why? And she goes, if you would have taken those antibiotics, you would be held up in bed.
Oh,
You wouldn't have been able to function.
You're
You're not a
on your blood
candidate.
work. Wow.
Based on my blood work, she goes, you're not a candidate for those antibiotics. And so it's like, again, there's not often a rhyme or reason, but like if you have a visceral reaction, just trust it. And so I'm grateful in the sense that I can now look back the past year at all of those times my body was like, no, I'm like, oh, cool. All right. She talking,
Yeah. Well, you're getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm close.
Wow. You've done so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I think that's another point to reference in, giving yourself grace,
Yeah.
giving the person listening grace in any form of healing journey you're on. Don't like it's easy. It's human nature to want to just get to the solution,
Totally.
which I think is what we have become reliant on or even expect of the modern American medical system. I have this problem, give me this solution. I have this disease, this illness, give me this medication. But it's not like we walked into that doctor's office, one person, and in the waiting room, we developed this disease or this issue.
Right.
Like there are a lot of things. We are a multifaceted being, and health and illness is also multifaceted.
Yeah.
Not one thing is going to keep you or get you healthy. Not
Right.
one thing is going to get you or keep you ill as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset that I hope everybody gets out of this message and really can just solidify.
Yeah. It's not just because everything I'm saying, that doesn't mean that plant medicine, is going to be your cure all,
Sure.
right? It's really trusting that we have instinct to survive. And for me, if it comes from a place of fear, so like if when I was supposed to go to the East Coast for treatment, if I kept hearing, well, your plane's going to crash and you're going to, whatever, I think that's fear, at least for me, versus just a very yes or no.
Okay.
Anytime there's a yes or no, especially if there's love attached to it, I know that's my intuition.
Wow,
and
amazing.
so I don't know. I would say, like, for anyone out there listening, if you're curious about what your intuition is, recognize, is there fear? Is there anxieties attached to it? If there are, that might just be that. It might just be fear and anxiety. But if there's just a sure yes or no, maybe listen to it.
Yeah. Well, it's been so good having you here on the show. Thank you so much for your time now twice. So I always appreciate the local aspect here and kind of just getting to know people and really diving into, a great conversation here on the show. So thank you for last weekend today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Before we get to the very end, you're very welcome, of course. Before we get to the final question, where can people go to learn more about you, to connect with you and your work?
Yeah. So you can connect with me on the gram at Noel_Elie. Or you can go to my website, my production website, noelellieproductions.com.
Amazing. We're going to have that down in the video notes, show notes for everybody. And so living a life ever forward, I think you will appreciate in a unique way, came from my father, my late father. And I think I shared this with you. It was like this phrase, this mantra, this lifestyle that he embodied his entire life. And just then in his illness, completely stepped into and showed us not only what it meant, the words, but like what it looked like. Truly, no matter what, even if it is your death sentence, you have to find a way to push through. There has to be just one thing that you can do to put in front of the other. But I always ask my guests, what does that mean to you? When you hear ever forward, how do you live a life ever forward? How do you define that?
For me, I mean, I love that. First of all, that's so beautiful. And for me, it's about having faith. I am a person who has always seen the glass half full. And in any situation, I want to have a good time. So, I think it's about finding joy in all the moments. And I think it's there if you look for it. But it's a choice. And believe me, I mean, there are so many times where I'm in the depths of despair and I'm like, I don't want to be joyful. I don't, but it's about.
It's a fair response. It's a human response.
It's a human response. But I think, there are always things to be grateful for. And as I say that to you, I'm saying it to myself, but there are always things to be grateful for. And gratitude to me is living ever forward.
There's no right or wrong answer. Yeah. So I always appreciate everybody's interpretation of that. And as much as it is for you and the listeners, it's this constant kind of feedback loop for me and the path that I've chosen and just the connection that I have on my healing journey, with losing my father and everything that life has kind of thrown my way. I'm not anything special. We all go through these things. And so it's just important to have these reminders a lot, and hopefully, no doubt, one thing at least here today has kind of been that for somebody else. So whether that's saying hi to your mom, call your mom right now, everybody, but also just, there's so much more. I keep saying there's health in illness is multifaceted. And we can be drinking all the right water, doing all the right things, but, I'm sorry for everything you've been going through, but I think it's just another reminder of, take inventory of the internal and external environment. Totally. Inside and out to really just completely commit yourself to your healing journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I try not to get in victim mode of like, why me? Or, this sucks.
Sure.
Instead, I'm like, okay, cool. I can carry this torch. And I hope that through, podcasts like this and through social media and through these platforms, I can now raise awareness on, hey, have you checked your home for mold? Do you feel bad when you walk into your house? Maybe look into that.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, quick fun fact. I forget the exact statistic, but when we were walking in, I was like, yeah, take off the shoes. And that was another thing that I learned from that book Countdown was I used to just think taking off your shoes at the door was like, oh, it's polite and sure. Yeah. And not tracking in dirt, but the level and the measurable amount of toxins, nanoparticles, all this stuff from the outside. I mean, think about what you're walking through, paint, construction, trash, drainage, whatever, and then you're bringing in these nanoparticles into your home, and it was crazy. And that stuff bioaccumulates.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Take off your shoes.
Take off your shoes.
Well, Noel, thank you so much.